Hello, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Moore's October Rants. Today's episode is going to be titled, Who Cares? When I look back on my life, especially the last 10 years, I can't help but laugh at how much time I spent stressing over things that, in the grand scheme of things, didn't matter as much as I thought they did. It's almost comical now, but at the time it was anything but. I would lose sleep, get myself worked up, and spiral into these moments of intense anxiety, worrying about outcomes that either never came to pass or didn't turn out to be nearly as catastrophic as I imagined. That's the tricky thing about our minds. They have this uncanny ability to make mountains out of molehills, leaving us emotionally drained over hypothetical situations. Of course, I'm not saying the last 10 years were smooth sailing. There were real challenges, painful experiences, and moments that left scars, trauma even. Everyone has those. Life isn't designed to be trauma-free, and part of being human is learning how to navigate through those tough times. But when I really sit with myself and reflect, I realize just how much unnecessary stress I created by caring too much about things I couldn't control or things that didn't ultimately matter. The energy I wasted trying to predict every outcome, preparing myself for the worst-case scenario. It's exhausting just thinking about it. It wasn't just hypothetical scenarios that consumed me, though. A lot of my emotional energy went into my relationships. In my early 20s especially, I had this tendency to give my all to people who didn't give the same energy back. I was constantly putting in so much effort, texting first, making plans, checking in, being there, while realizing deep down that the care wasn't mutual. It wasn't that they were bad people, it's just that I valued them more than they valued me. And that imbalance is exhausting. But for some reason, I couldn't stop myself from trying. I'd think, if I just show them how much I care, if I keep giving, they'll eventually see my worth. Spoiler alert, they didn't. What's wild is that even when I knew someone didn't value me the way I valued them, I'd keep going. It's like I didn't want to face the truth, so I clung to the idea that I could fix it by caring harder. It's sad to admit now, but I was more invested in avoiding rejection than I was in preserving my own emotional well-being. I cared so much that it hurt, and the irony is that my overcaring probably pushed people further away. Relationships are supposed to be a two-way street, but I was busy trying to pave both sides of the road myself. Looking back now, I can see how unhealthy that was. Caring too much, to the point where it consumes you, doesn't make anyone love you more. It just drains you. There's a fine line between being compassionate and selfless, and completely losing yourself in the process. I've learned the hard way that if you don't set boundaries, if you don't prioritize yourself, people will take as much as you're willing to give without ever considering how it affects you. And that's not a reflection of them being bad people. It's a reflection of me not valuing myself enough to say, this is what I deserve. As I've grown older, I've started to realize just how important it is to balance your level of care. That doesn't mean shutting off your emotions or becoming cold and detached. Far from it. It's about learning who and what deserves your energy. Not everything and not everyone is worth the emotional investment. And that's not selfish. It's survival. You can't pour from an empty cup, as the saying goes. If you're constantly giving and giving without ever stopping to replenish yourself, you'll burn out. And the truth is, no one else is going to step in and save you when that happens. You have to be the one to prioritize your needs and your well-being. It's not just personal relationships where I've struggled with this either. I've wasted so much time caring about what other people think of me, especially people who don't even play a meaningful role in my life. Strangers on the internet, people I might cross paths with briefly in a group chat, acquaintances I'll never see again. It's so easy to get caught up in worrying about how others perceive you, even when those people are completely irrelevant to your life. And sure, I can sit here and say, I don't care what people think, but if I'm being honest with myself, I do. At least I used to. And even now, it's a work in progress. But the older I get, the more I realize how draining it is to constantly seek approval or validation from people who barely know me, or worse, people who don't care about me at all. What I've noticed is that as you get older, your priorities start to shift. You go through enough in life. heartbreaks, losses, disappointments that you start craving peace more than anything else. And peace doesn't come from trying to please everyone or caring about every little thing. It comes from letting go of what doesn't serve you. It comes from recognizing that most people in the world aren't thinking about you, not because they're heartless, but because they're too busy dealing with their own lives. And honestly, that's freeing. Once you stop expecting the world to care about you, you can start focusing on the one person who should, you. One thing that's been eye-opening for me is looking at my phone at the end of the day and seeing who's reached out. 9 times out of 10, it's silent. And that used to hurt. I'd think, why doesn't anyone check on me? Why am I always the one initiating conversations? But then I realized something important. It's not that people don't care. It's just that they don't prioritize me the way I've been prioritizing them. And that's okay. People can't give you what they don't have to offer. It's not personal. It's just life. But that realization also made me rethink how I spend my emotional energy. If I'm always the one reaching out, maybe it's time to step back and see who notices my absence. Spoiler alert again, not many people do. And that's okay too. The thing is, we're all living in our own little worlds. Most people don't even know you exist. And it's not malicious, it's just reality. The world is too big and too chaotic for everyone to care about everyone else. That's why it's so important to care for yourself, to be your own best friend. You have to be the one who checks in on you, who makes sure you're okay, because no one else is going to do it the way you can. And when you start valuing yourself, when you stop chasing after people who don't see your worth, you start to feel lighter, freer. It's taken me a long time to get here, and I'm still learning, but I've realized that my peace and my well-being have to come first. That doesn't mean I've stopped caring altogether. I still deeply care about the people who matter to me, but I've stopped overextending myself for people who don't reciprocate. And honestly, it feels good. It feels like I'm finally taking my power back. At the end of the day, life is too short to spend it trying to please everyone else. Sometimes you just have to let go, focus on yourself, and trust that the right people, the people who genuinely care, will show up for you without you having to beg for it. Anyways, thank you for listening to this episode of the Moors October Rants. Signing out. Have a good one, guys. Goodbye.